Well, hi there. This is Ron Rogers, and the question is, should the military allow enlisted personnel to become pilots? Well, of course not. Never done it in the past. Why should we? What possible reason were there would be to become people who are not officers, which also equates to not college degreed people with college degrees? Why should we let them fly the most advanced aircraft in the world? Now, I had a college degree, a very good college degree. It was from a decent school, University of Iowa. It was my first choice, mainly because my father was a fireman. We lived in Iowa City. University of Iowa was in Iowa City. And it was kind of a no-brainer that I wasn't going to go to any place else because although at the time, and this is a big difference. At the time, a college education was reasonably affordable. My dad, we weren't poor, but you don't make a lot of money back then being a firefighter. Fireman, they called him. The women were just coming on, and that's a different story, too. But I digress. But anyway, he was able to afford that just as we went. So it worked out very well, and I got a very nice degree. In fact, the trouble was, once I got in the Air Force, I was working on a master's in electrical engineering and aero, and I was getting to the point, and that's another story that I talk about in my career choices, but I was getting to the point where I was unfortunately more valuable as an engineer than I was as a pilot, because at that time they had enough pilots, but engineers were a little more in need, let's put it that way. All right. Well, okay. Well, I guess we did have people who came into the military. Yeah, funny thing, huh? We did have people who came into the military who did not have a college degree. Were these people smart? Now, I know a lot of people who don't have college degrees, and I'll be the first one to say that just because you got a college degree doesn't mean you're smart. There are some people dumb as rocks that have advanced degrees, okay? And I know plenty of people, have plenty of friends who do not have college degrees and are some of the wisest people I ever knew. My father being one of them. He only had a sixth grade education. And yeah, math was not his strong point. It was for my mom, by the way, who had a business degree, but it wasn't for him. But he was a very wise individual. You didn't want to take him on. But okay, anyway. So they start these people out, and they start out enlisted as cadets learning to fly, and if they did well, then they got to be a warrant officer. Okay, that's kind of the space between enlisted and, the regular commissioned officers. They were warrant officers. Okay, so they became warrant officers, but one such gentleman, and you may recognize this aircraft if you're into aviation. Okay, this guy, General Chuck Yeager, who I had the privilege of working for slightly when he would set in for General Stafford. When General Stafford, out at the Flight Test Center where I was based, when General Stafford would go on vacation, General Yeager would come in and I would brief him on the daily operations because I was officer in charge of current operations and say, hey, this is what happened on the test ranges today and what went on. Okay, well, if you've been to the Smithsonian and seen the display about his notes on going supersonic, not only did he have like a photographic memory of what was going on, but of course he was a great test pilot. He started out enlisted, he started out as a mechanic, and he had great mechanical skills, which is one of the reasons he was such a great test pilot, because he knew his airplane inside and out. And of course, very intelligent during World War II. He became a second lieutenant and advanced in rank, obviously, and had a very good career. But okay, why did they bring these enlisted people on? Well, it's kind of supply and demand. When you need a lot of pilots, you will, okay, I don't want to say lower the standards, but you will open things up. It would be nice if you required a degree, because the reason they like degrees, the military likes degrees, is it is a person who has demonstrated they can follow through on something and they know how to study to a certain degree. Now, I had friends who had like a general studies degree. Okay, that's kind of worthless. That and a couple of bucks will get you a cup of coffee. Because they just took a bunch of courses. They took enough to qualify for a college degree and they're out. Now, okay, there are some companies who will say, like the military, if you got a college degree, you've proven something, we'll take you. They don't really care what it is. But if you're going to work for Boeing or Cessna, people like that, they want a specific engineering degree. And okay, I digress. But anyway, the point is, if you can be picky, you tend to be. And when you need a lot of pilots, you open things up. Okay. Well, like I said, the argument was these aircraft are complex now. They're much more modern and lots of dials and clocks there, and they want somebody that's proven that they can go through a course and learn things. But again, see that little arrow there? That's Dick Scobie, the Challenger commander, who I had the privilege of flying a number of test missions. He checked me out in the T-38 out at Edwards, and I gave him his last Air Force check ride before he went to NASA, and had a career flying the space shuttle, which we all know that it didn't work out the best, unfortunately, due to some managers who didn't, they normalized deviation, and there's a nice little book on that. Very unfortunate. But he was enlisted. Sharp guy. Excellent pilot. He worked his way up through the ranks, of course, and, got a college degree and, went through pilot training and stuff like that. Another guy, Brent, in my pilot training class right there. Not the F-15 fighter pilot, future F-15 fighter pilot, Rocky there, stuffing his face. But Brent was an Army helicopter pilot, enlisted, and he came back, got to be an Air Force pilot, went to test pilot school on the helicopter side, because see, that's the problem. He had all this helicopter experience, and you can't offset that with a little bit of fixed wing. So he was much more valuable as a helicopter test pilot. But once he got out to Edwards, he actually got in charge of the Hercules AC-130 gunship program, and he was in charge of that. And we were actually out at Edwards at the same time. It was kind of fun. And he went on to be a Boeing test pilot and had a good career there. So another guy who started out in the enlisted ranks and did okay. But of course, now you'll say, well, those helicopters, you don't need a college degree to fly those. They are simple to fly, said nobody who's ever flown a helicopter. This is a UH-1N. The Air Force had them out at Edwards. The N meant it had two engines instead of the Huey in Vietnam that had one. And I got to fly this. And I couldn't even scratch my nose, because you couldn't take your hands off the cyclic collective or your feet. Of course, I can't scratch my nose with the feet. But, you couldn't even take time to scratch your nose. And, okay, this was a relatively easy aircraft to fly because it had a jet engine, two jet engines, with fuel control governors. So when you pulled up on the collective, normally, if you fly one of these things with a piston engine, as you pull up on that collective, you have to roll your fist to bring power in. Well, with the jet engines, you don't need to do that because the fuel control takes care of it. So it gets even more complicated. So, okay, well, that's not a good argument for you have to be, super smart or skilled or that. But because there's plenty of people who fly helicopters in the Army. But, of course, you're saying, well, that Huey, it's fairly simple. They don't have complicated weapon systems. Oh, wait. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on that. That looks complicated. Yeah, that looks complicated too. Well, okay, well, maybe you can fly a complicated weapon system without a college degree and figure out what all those things do, and the guns and the rockets and the missiles and stuff like that. Okay, well, maybe you can, okay? But it really takes a lot of intelligence to do this. Well, wait a minute. Most of the people who take care of the munitions are people who are enlisted. So, maybe that's not a very good argument. Okay, well, back to me. I've got my college degree there. I would hate to have to get a college degree these days and pay for it, because you're kind of indentured for life. And I've helped a couple of my kids with their college expenses, which were astronomical. But I would hate to do it today. And of course, the thing is, it's getting harder to get a degree. You really have to have a justification to do it. And the other thing in the military is the commitment now, because of the training costs and that. You're talking about, I believe it's 10, 11 years that you end up in, and that's half a career. Well, of course, I got out early because who needs that government pension? I've got this great airline pension. Yeah, well, that's great until your airline declares bankruptcy. And a lot of the guys that came on, junior to me, of course, I was senior because I got hired early, but I got all these co-pilots who have a nice military retirement. So, yeah, it's funny how things work out. But, if you have the need for pilots and it's getting tough to get them, and college is kind of an arbitrary thing. Okay, I could learn the book stuff because I had a college degree. I demonstrated that, but you still have to have the aptitude. Now I took aptitude tests and I went through the introduction program where I flew a Cessna, a Piper 140 to get my 35 hours, and that's to demonstrate that hey, you're not going to get sick, or you can at least kind of figure out how to do this, and they evaluate that, and it's kind of an entry to see if you can be a good pilot because it costs millions of dollars to train pilots, and this aircraft. Okay. Yeah, I almost had a master's degree in aero and electrical, and that's kind of a different story there on why I didn't complete them. But yeah, to fly this, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm smart enough to fly this with with my college degree. I talked to an F-35 pilot recently, and I mean, this is an amazing aircraft with amazing capabilities. And yeah, I think you gotta really have your stuff together to fly this. And I'm wondering if I'm smart enough to do it. Of course, at this age, being 74, learning something like this would be probably more of a task than I could take on. But okay. We do have a good history where it works. You just have to be selective. You probably would have to make sure you put in a lot of programs early to weed out people who can't hack it. And that's probably not that difficult. I mean, I thought the aptitude tests were pretty good. And they do, I mean, there's plenty of tests around to determine how well and how fast you can learn. So I think you could probably weed out inappropriate people. Because like I said, I got friends who are some of the smartest people I know, and they don't have college degrees. And they do just fine in life. So I think doing away with a college degree would be something that you could probably fairly easily implement, and it would not be detrimental. Now, okay, the military would love to have the total source of pilots, officers and pilots come through the Air Force Academy. In fact, when I was an instructor in T-37s, if you were an Academy graduate and you didn't want to fly, you had to talk to a shrink and explain why you weren't manly enough or something like that. So we had people, and at times we had a lot of ROTC people. See, I was ROTC, Air Force, and I was told that I was a civilian influence in the military, which I used to my advantage when I was criticized for not having the greatest military decorum or whatever, because I was the civilian influence. And of course, I probably have 12 digressions during this one. This is probably a record. But anyway, okay. Where was I? Okay, basically, they would love to have Academy graduates, but does that necessarily give you the best pilots? Because I've been not the most impressed with Academy graduates on occasion. Let's put it that way. And I don't think that's necessary. I think you can get a really good pilot, and a lot of the great pilots did not go through the academy. So, for what that's worth, I mean, if you got an opportunity, it's a free education. It's hard as heck to get in. I looked at it recently, and I probably wouldn't have made it myself through the academy, through the selection process. But it's really selective, and yeah, you really hone a person to be an officer. But I think you could do just as well of bringing people in without that much background. So that's my 2 cents worth. I hope you found it interesting, enjoyable, open for discussion, and all sorts of other stuff. Thanks for watching.